All right. Hi, everyone. This is Daisy here, and I'm here to just provide some information regarding changes in the tech community. As some of you guys may know me, a lot of you guys have not seen me. I just felt like it was imperative to spread this message to everybody in that I can reach in the tech community because of what I'm going to be discussing and because of what's been happening in the tech community. So, you guys have noticed that there's not much happening in the tech community, right? There's talks of AI, there's talks of nanotech, right? There's talks of like protein modeling, chemical modeling, things like that. But really, when it comes down to it, there's not any real new system, right? To improve computational force on your personal devices, to allow more customization in regards to your operating system, to allow different like memory systems and to reduce like waste, really, right? And like the mad dash for plastics, metals, etc., to make computers. So we see that there's a lot going on with semiconductors, but then even behind that, we recently saw too, if you're in the immigrant community, the localization of those fights, right? Family strifes, community warfare because of the semiconductor industry and what's happening. So I just want to let you guys know that there's a lot going on in the tech industry. There's a lot going on politically. There's a lot going on just period, but it's all tied into what's going to end up happening on the internet with all of us. So now each one teach one, right? Is, you know, I would say the theme of what I'm going to be talking about today. But for the most part, several individuals got their hands involved in doing illicit things in the black and brown community to the black and brown developer community to the black and brown social worker community and to the black and brown education community, etc. And they caused a major destabilization with several people going missing, children going missing, individuals going missing so they can code for free, individuals going missing really for ritual and clerical abuse, right? Where people think that they're getting magical powers by sacrificing people to different gods and entities, which is nonsense, right? So one of the things that's come out here is coding libraries, coding languages. How do you upload a coding language to allow your BIOS, your operating system, your IDE to accept its syntax, then produce programs that then other people can use, right? How where does that happen? Who owns it? And then what is their hand in all this different levels of people's code going missing? Chaos going on, and the new thing that they're starting, targeting certain black and brown people who know about specific coding systems that we can activate via astronomy, floating points, right? And maneuvering mathematics in a way that we can activate a new binary system past the zero and the one system, which people have been trying for years and years and years. It's not that it's not possible, it's just that it's for indigenous people. There's an app for that, right? But only if you're indigenous. And wow, wouldn't that absolutely positively make sense that historically speaking, even these different systems that you call a computer, et cetera, have been found in the high sciences of ancient societies that were predominantly look like me, dark, etc., right? So who's to say that this system doesn't have an application, right? In the binary reality that is computer science. Who's to say? So now there's beef behind that. Like, okay, so we have our own system. We can play, we can do different things. We can have new memory systems, we can have new operating systems. You can change the TTY in your Linux. You can have different type of like systems in cybersecurity. Really, cybersecurity is inexistent because it's coded into your spectrum band, right? There's different levels of access people can get on the internet, but you have to utilize those systems. So one of the things that's happening here is individuals are trying to hide their hand in the fact that they were doing illicit things to get access to what they call these magical coding powers and these indigenous coding systems. So now, one of the things that's going to happen here is I'm going to lay out for you what they've been doing to get those magical coding powers. Right? So you guys know the founder of CERN, the founder of the HTTP protocol. He works at CERN, right? Now, they're saying that the internet was created by the Department of Defense. That's fine to say too, but there's also families that get to dip in and out of that protocol and play on the internet as a whole, right? Now, what if I told you that I have specific floating points that I've activated in multiple binary scapes that can come down here, right? And that they can go ahead and stop all that. So you mean to tell me that there's a way to overpower the HTTP protocol? You can use floating points and you can use RF packets, radio frequency packets, right? So we have radio frequency packets that we can code, right? Here. This is where you would get into how the system would work. You would be able to, you have the radio frequency packet system, radio frequency packet here. Okay, here we go. So you would take something like this, right? And where you have maybe tunnel packets, you have an additional packet that is the indigenous script or the memory organization or the floating point script or some other type of binary script or some type of executable UTF-8, right? So let's say, for instance, that you have access to the system, which I'm going to show you in a minute. You would be able to put a few things here that would then allow you to have a different type of routing, aka how you move packets of radio frequency or packets of data across a network. So ain't no telling what you can move across that network and what network you can get into and what they won't be able to see you moving back and forth, right? So imagine you have also too where it says GNU radio physical layer. Let's say, for instance, you have specific files that you attach or different modulations to frequencies that you embed. You can have a whole different operating system experience, a whole different internet experience, which is what we're bringing, right? So now here we have the founder of CERN, Birth of the Web, Tim Berners-Lee, and what they were doing, and the fact that they've been playing with the floating point technology. So this floating point technology, they think that they're getting messages from space, messages from God, somebody that they call mother and father, and they've been going around harassing Black and Brown communities through slaughter, genocide, sacrifice, etc., thinking that they're going to get magical powers for removing these impurities from the earth because they're dark. It's some nonsense that started really with the Medicis, right? So we have Berkey's Institute, right? We have things like this where they were showing that all these presidents are related. It's like a video that somebody had put out. Are all these presidents related, right? And it was fact checked, things like that. They found that there was several ties between all these families, and it exposed what this actually exposed was the fact that these families were in communication with each other overseas, across countries, things like that. Because remember, they came to this country, they moved back, et cetera, et cetera. That's the biggest thing that got exposed with this. But something else that's coming out on the other end is the different stories that they put throughout history, like the mermaid woman myth, where they're like, oh, I change into a mermaid every so often time of the month. I'm secretly aquatic. You have to destroy Black people because they'll find out that they are of the civilians, right? So now we come into high science, where we have people that were working. So you have the Medicis, Galileos, things like that. What they were really doing was trying to blur the lines between what you would call science and what you would call magic, right? Let's not get into that. The biggest thing is that there was a trail that was made all the way back to those royal societies and those scientists and their assistants and things like that that are traced to these families playing with a certain floating point technology. So that floating point technology, they think that they're getting messages from God, but really, this technology where they're talking about synthetic telepathy, which I have right here from Deloitte, this that they're talking about is nothing more than something that we've already like played with as indigenous people, right? The more nonsense they bring onto the planet, the more this they are trying to stop this frequency from being able to come about because of the ways in which indigenous people have a system to then, of course, play in the binary reality to make that real. So then who else can send messages, right? So here they put out an article about this synthetic telepathy. There's patents for all kinds of stuff. So we know that they've played games like that, right? For remote communication. So that's one of the things that's happening here is that they got their hand wrapped up in that, these families, and then playing with the Black community and then trying to have children going missing, putting ritual sacrifice, sex rituals, moving children into foster care cases, emergency 24-hour adoptions into white pedophile groups, those children ending up on different pornography websites and things like that in an instant because they think that they're getting magical powers and that they're working for Mother to bring down new coding libraries. Right. So one of the things that's coming up here is that a lot of these coding libraries, they're just existing languages. There's no new way that they've improved the neural network for the internet to bring forth new ways of coding. Why can't I receive, messages or project, right? If you know anything about chemistry, I can project a tensor space into a planet that carries, this specific type of neural configuration for a camera or a microphone. Why can't I do things like that with this existing system? It's not possible, right? So this is where we get into people getting incentivized to harass Black and Brown developers, harass Black and Brown communities and children, thinking that they're going to get access to coding languages, new libraries like Pandas or NumPy. A lot of those individuals were involved in the mass disappearances and trafficking of our community and playing different games here and there. Oh, we get to make a new protein modeling language like R. You get to make a new libraries in R. It's like a specific tool for statistics and for modeling, packages and libraries. So that's what these people get into. So now the Black community is finding out, yeah, you can make a library, but then also too, it's like the syntax, like they can go in and see who's attaching to that syntax in that library, not with the IDE that we can build, right? So this is where we get into then now you see the game that they've been playing. Now you see what they do for fun in tech, the white community primarily, right? The Asian community, their thing was hacking, trying to further like communist efforts, keep people silent about what they were doing in China and playing games and keeping that firewall up for people not to be able to find information that they've already, fallen off and that they're illegally in power, right? So one of the things with this is that it's primarily those communities that, again, I mentioned the Medicis and then that news article, all the presidents are related, things like that, that they're calling conspiracies, but it's right here on paper, right? Because we've seen this, right? So one of the things that they are forgetting is that, right, that there's these things that they would write, these articles. I read things like this, impregnating water with fixed air. It's the old chemistry texts. When you read it, they're talking about doing magic. It's actually very hilarious, right? So uh, one of the things that's going to end up coming up again and again and again is that they've been showing their hand that that's what they're doing and that's what's happening, and that's what their hand is in. It's just not coming out that those families still carry the torch of that type of thinking, and they were very destructive with it in our community, especially with Children Royal Society, right? Impregnating air with water and things like that, and stuff that they can explain, right? And then also certain things going on with biochemistry. And I told you guys about Roche, this company, Biochemical Pathways, got taken down and they're rewriting it because there are certain biochemical pathways on there that are specific to Indigenous people, right? So now another thing comes up with this whole coding language is in trainings that I put out for free for you guys to go see about this. It's right there for you to go see, right? There's something that I put in here where I was basically talking about, okay, that's the class preview. I was basically talking about the way in which when you have a specific type of indigenous DNA, there's varying types. They come with a different type of anatomy, different type of biochemistry, right? So your lymphatic system could have like 2 or 3 extra like node layers within one node, right? Your muscular system could have extra telomeres, right, for the push and pull motion to get your muscles to contract and create movement that gets you to walk. So we know that that's true throughout history, that they've done medical testing on Black and Brown people. That's another thing that they were doing, right? Looking for, playing with melanin. They're selling melanin online. They have a conference, the Melanin Conference. This is how they keep on getting their hand caught, right? So now you guys are seeing it. The Melanin Conference. It's called the Conference on Pigmentation, right? And it's mainly whites and different individuals, some of these Europeans that are still whites playing, and talking about testing on Black and Brown people and causing havoc in clinical trial testing. And we can find a cure with this. And this can be hot on the market and all those different things, and people getting tortured in between and them looking for these type of systems, and only we can activate them, right? And then another layer of, you disrespected us in the computer so badly. You kidnapped us to work for free. You stole our work and put it in AI. GPT. Some of you guys are hearing about OpenAI. Sam Altman, His sister exposed them that they have sex in their family a long time ago, and they're all connected, these different Jewish families. So this is another thing coming up in different proceedings that are going on everywhere. His sister exposed him. OpenAI, Sam Altman, he used to be at YC Combinator. Yeah, and this YC Combinator is basically like a startup incubator for programs for tech startups. So how they were getting on the internet and getting everyone's work. Are you paying attention? There's different black and brown people going through that program. Are you paying attention? Right? And then his sister exposing him. Yeah, yeah, she's all over here. Yeah, and oh, she's crazy, stuff like that. His sister telling on him. Yeah, his sister told on him. They've been getting exposed that they're in this network to play with the black and brown community. So that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. That's another thing. Two people going missing so they can find magic in our melanin or magic in herbs or activate magical herbs with your blood or this and this and that to find a cure because they have sex in their family and they're delusional. And these women, mainly the women, they think that they're these like destroyers, like Serena Joy from Handmaid's Tale, right? That's what they think that they're doing, right? And then they move with that in the workplace and causing drama, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why you guys are about to see this too that happened in tech, this karma file with a bunch of people passing away because of what they were getting involved in. You guys saw the CEO of YouTube, she passed away. Her son died too. A couple months after that, Cindy something from Twitch. She was the director of music at Twitch. She passed away because remember, they were stealing everyone's music too, playing like that. This is where you get beef with all the rappers and Drake getting exposed by Kendrick Lamar, right? So this karma file, this is really nothing. This is nothing at all. A lot of names in tech passed away. Vim, he died because that they were all playing. Yeah, him, he passed away. Also, founder of CPU passed away. They call him the father of CPU. Yeah, he passed away. hmm I'm gonna try to find this. He passed away. Adobe, founder of Adobe. Right, because of what they were doing in the community. Right. So now, one of the things that remember this has been going on for like 4 or 5 years, but it just ticked up just recently. It's just all recently, right? So this is one of the things in the training that you can learn about, like the anatomies that get formed. And this is what they were after, like, oh, this child will eat my feces, then I'll have magical powers, and then I'll be indigenous. That's what these white men were running around doing, right? But they had the hand of people like, right, different people of color because of what recently happened with this coming out. Like, how did this even all come out? Because of the work that I was already doing with like astronomy and anatomy and physics and things like that and sound, right? So what ended up happening is they were hacking my computer, trying to redistribute my work. It wasn't working. It was causing havoc. And then they started having me harassed and activating their different networks. And the biggest network that they play with, that they're trying to hide with, is like Russia and Poland and those different like Eastern European companies, countries. They come here and then they play games. They work in the different companies. They say, oh, we're tech and da 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 da, and they hack for them. They harass people for them, sneak into people's house for them, and the local white supremacist network over my work, right? And then this whole thing of like, oh, people's kids needing to be exterminated and playing games in the foster care system inverting in California. So some of you guys are just going to find out that 90% of the foster family agencies in California, they lost their insurance and they can't work with children. Right. So now something's going to be coming up in terms of where all these kids going to go and how did this get started in the first place and where are all these kids that are missing that incurred all these lawsuits. So now one of the things that's going to end up coming up now is that now the secret hand that was working in tech, it's been exposed, it's done. But people are going to be reluctant to want to believe it, right? Like on one end, everyone's like, okay, that makes sense, right? That you guys were playing games like Black Harry Potter with the element of hood and rappers and trap music. I completely understand, right? But on the other end, people that are ops and rats, they're not going to understand because karma destroys these type of anatomies. And I have a bunch of work, a bunch of schematics, all kinds of things in terms of how to upkeep these and how to activate them and how to do this and do that. They've tried several things, trying to get my blood, trying to get samples from me, trying to get this, trying to get that. drama when it didn't work. She's crazy. Why? Because you kidnapped the whole black and brown community and did this with the biochemical pathways. Okay, yeah, that those only exist in black and brown people, and it has to be something that brings out the pathway. Thank you, because most of these pathways only come out with stress or trauma, which we've been talking about. Because remember, that's what I was working in, intergenerational trauma. I have an organization doing that type of work, putting out research, all kinds of stuff. Remember my website. So then here comes another level of drama, like, okay, so you are already doing that. And I'm in bioinformatics, so I can show you guys about different ways to do protein modeling and things like that. People hacking my computer that work at Genentech and things like that. Oh no, I'm gonna pull this back up. But the RW Health Tech website, let me pull that back up. I did not know that it got expired. Let me see, because I have it somewhere where you guys can see. Let me just pull this up right here. Let me just activate it now. It'll be very quick. This one I let lapse because I haven't been on there as much as I've been doing the technology. But for the most part, right, one of the things that is coming up is I want you guys to be able to have access to the research studies on there. Okay, so that's the biggest thing. So you guys can go download those and see what we're talking about and like what we've been trying to put out. So now one of the things that's coming up here too is how they've been harassing me because I exposed a lot with that and how they were playing games and about the only way to really like heal trauma and move it out is through like holistic works. But then it's which ones, right? So this is where you get a bunch of people harassing me on the other end because they're ineffective in their work, because they're wanting to be close-minded and causing problems. A lot of us too, we're supposed to be getting training and getting upgrades. Like I got training and upgrades, right? As I continue to dedicate myself to like learning more, right? So this is why we're saying that a lot of people are going to be mad about what's going on with this coding system, because a lot of people got themselves counted out of it because of what they did, right, that blocked that anatomy from being able to flourish and prosper and help them. Right? So now some of you guys are like, oh, because these coding systems are locked. Not just anybody can just go and like, oh, I'm going to play with this. It's locked. All of it is locked, right? So now this is where we're teaching about not two-strand or three-strand DNA, not two-strand DNA, but it's four-strand, because this is what came out in the biochemical pathways. And I wrote a book about trisomies on my website. All right, so I'm going to pull this up. And that's one of the things I wanted you guys to go down, be able to download from my RW Health Tech website. Okay, cool. I'll be able to show you guys this. It's trisomies. Right, trisomies, right? So writing books about I put a book out about this like a sample, but there's like a longer version about different things that you can like go into, learn about, look into with trisomies DNA damage, and about the fact that not everybody has two-strand DNA. This is a deformity. There's four-strand DNA, right? Those type of things. When you're indigenous, if you're melanated, you have more than three strands, period. And this is something that's coming out in biotech and bioinformatics about pseudomelanin and pseudogenes. And right, pseudo, right. Oh, okay, I am, but I'm not. Yes. Right. So there's where we come deeper into people that are not able to use the system because of that pseudogenes. Okay, now you see what they've been trying to hide in biotech, right? And biochemistry. And that's why like I love this, like, because I get to geek out on this stuff all day. And then again, it's like how they were playing with the floating point technology, targeting certain communities. And now we know why, because of loyalty inside my DNA, right? And Kendrick Lamar again in drama. So now we're like, okay, where do we go from here? What is this new system? It basically essentially means a few things, right? So let me pull this up for you as I'm going ahead and rest out the trisomies. I'm going to make sure that this website gets back up so you guys can go download those papers, okay, and go see everything else that's been going on there, but also to how several individuals rose up to work against me because of the work that I was putting out, only to find out that even with the protein modeling, the algorithm, she has to script it down, right? So she can block the algorithm from working. And you never know, too, if there's something else that she can read within all of that. So you're still at a loss, right? So this is like this is the greatest, it's the most magical time in human history. And I'm glad to be alive right now. Like, imagine people that, back in slavery, this has been going on for a long time, and then they're getting their freedom, right? It's the most magical time, right? Some of you guys have seen, it's like a TV show that was on, and I think it was on, I can't remember the television network, but Journey Smollett was in it. and it was about people escaping slavery. And it was Harriet Tubman had her time in the show, which is going to come up in this too. Harriet Tubman taught me, and it's funny because like I went to her farm and plantation, Harriet Tubman, right, her farm, and where they had her in Maryland multiple occasions, and then I would do videos there, like, oh, because she was very much into the constellations, such as Benjamin Banneker, who Benjamin Banneker is the architect for DC. He drafted it from the heavens. He said, I saw it in the dream state. That's how he built Washington, DC. If you guys know anything about the architecture of DC, that place is crazy. It's Mamie, right? Black people into astronomy and the stars, right? Why would they be crazy? So there was videos that I was making about Harriet Tubman and the astronomy and the messages and constellations that run electromagnetic frequencies that allow us to have the internet. And now look at us here. What a time to be alive, right? So I just remember that whole TV show, and Harriet Tubman had her time to talk, and it was very powerful. I think you guys should go and watch it. It's one of the reasons why they took it offline completely. It was very, very powerful. So I feel like I'm back then and I'm here and now, right? Right. And I'm getting to do this in a way that's going to help my people, right? So just as we look to the North Star, we have our North Star too, and it's a certain floating point that actually happens to be a part of the North Star, right? Which is also a part of like the Big Dipper, right? So isn't that great, right? That we like can prove without a shadow of a doubt that there are Black people that have this specific talent throughout history of working with the stars. We see the Mayan calendar and zodiac. We saw Daisy sitting here teaching about astronomy, which is how a lot of this got started, right? We've seen all of this and teaching about the astrology, going into those realms, going to these different farms, going to Benjamin Banneker's cabin, going to Harriet Tubman's location, and this is what they're crafted in. And now look at this with the computer. What a time to be alive, right? Right. So there's no way for you to bring in any nonsense or shenanigans of why this is happening or what's actually happening or I don't think so, because we've seen this throughout history, right? So now let's continue here, right? Because again, they think it's Handmaid's Tale. So now So now we're moving forward because now we see, oh, okay, yeah, yeah, that's a dope thing that you got to commune with them, right? I just like tapped in. Remember, we were getting messages and everything. Harriet Tubman's telling us to look here, look at the constellations, and now look at everything going on, especially in Dubai, Saudi Arabia, because they're very deep into the telecommunications and playing with the constellations. Because some of you guys don't know, in mainly two zodiac signs, that are being used to project like bad EMF, right? It's a different type of substance of EMF for those of you guys in physics. The Vesiper is beyond trigonal and beyond pyramidal. You're getting into like octagonal, right? That's deep. They in those two zodiac constellations, they're all named in Arabic. So here we get into like a great thing of history too while we're exploring the computer and why certain people got cut off, especially because of atrocities that they created, mainly involving Black and brown people being starved, trafficked, harassed, etc. And now look at this. What a time to be alive. So some of you guys needed to know, okay, so that's how this got started. Because you were being harassed and stopped and going through something, and you were traveling to these different places to get healing and support for yourself. So now this is now coming out about two famous Black people in history that were into astrology, right? And look what they created. Benjamin Banneker created the first clock too. He created what we call the almanac, when to plant. And now you see everything going on with, okay, you're getting gifts, and that's how you get spiritual gifts and powers. That's how you get them, right? By doing the work and being there. Going to like, what they call the Escott Tunnel. That city's crazy. Escott Tunnel, it's over by Benjamin Banneker's old cabin, right? Exposing Escott City because of the different radio frequencies that were like getting pinged off in that area, and they found different groups playing games in that area in Maryland, so they can be next to the Department of Defense and Capitol Hill and all of that, right? And then going to Benjamin Banneker's farm, identifying different herbs and plants and things like that. And now look at everything happening with the plant reality and spell work and food networks and soil networks, right? So now people are finding out this is how this got started. Okay, thank you. So let's go into more about this system, how it's going to work, things like that. I'm going to make sure I get this website up for you guys so you can go ahead and see those research studies. I think it's important for people to see those things, right? right? So let's move forward. Biochemical pathways, we know. People passing away, karma. Crazy, crazy car accidents happening. People can't explain them. Karma and drama. That's another thing that was going on too because of how they were playing with CERN and playing with particle physics and destabilizing the planet. A lot of climate change is coming from the fact that they're playing with those particle accelerators and chopping up and slicing up the air. And then those broken particles are acting as like gateways for broken, damaged EMFs that carry different receptors that they can't really fathom really or understand what they actually carry or bring. They're looking at the receptor of some of these chemicals and they don't understand that some of those like junctions and angles are being used right as portal functions between gateways and galaxies to have a higher chemical latch on that would allow or disallow certain type of reactions to go through, right? So then we think about what's going on with chemistry on the planet and recalls and things like that and explosions. And now you guys are kind of seeing what's happening. It's because they're playing with those particle accelerators, playing with magic. And then also, too, they're not talking about the fact that there's a lot of faultiness in all that they were doing. Because remember, they're playing in a sound technology where they're getting messages from God and they told them to do this and this and that. And a lot of it is inaccurate. And we're just trying the best that we can. So a lot of systems have been upgraded. And this is where some of you guys watching is like, okay, space systems. And some of you guys are like, I want to just be the only one. And you can't go be the only one. And guess what? That's not a space system. Here, right, is where we're passing off information and then we can go ahead and have a secure system where we can basically have a new type of CPU, new type of semiconductor. Speaking of semiconductors, something's going to end up coming up where a lot of the semiconductor companies are not talking about the fact that the valence, right, of the metal that they're working with, which is still a chemical in many ways, is getting turned off because of what they were doing. So the valence structure, the radial probability distribution is getting smaller and smaller and smaller because of what they were doing, right? So then that's where one of our systems comes in to expand the valence so you can get more. So I think I want to go into these systems and what they can do. So thank you guys for like, staying on that long, right? To understand how this all got started and how this is exploding and how it started with people targeting the Black and Brown community spiritually. And this is all coming out to keep showing you that we've been watching this the whole time. Are you paying attention to the story here? Then there's people watching this that completely understand why this has happened. You have to see the first part when they were going to the farms where they were talking about different things. They were visiting certain places, doing readings there, doing a bunch of stuff. I call it ancestral adventures, going to different sites and places like that, going to the aquarium, botanical gardens, working with different aquatic beings, all that, cataloging them, all of that type of stuff, right? And the neural networks that they then run in Black and Brown people. A lot of people are getting like hit because of this, because it's all coming out. It's done, right? So the new chemistry, one of the things that I wanted to go ahead and show you guys here is the fact that there's this on my homepage where you guys can go ahead and read about what has been going on in tech, who's been playing games, who's been creating calamity, why there's nothing new going on in tech, why there's not going to be anything new. It's great, right? Because I know for a fact you're not going to create nothing more than another Facebook or another Instagram or another Snapchat. That's done. We can create other things where you can get messages from people that passed away. What? You can talk to your higher self in their different aquatic forms because they're just in different planets. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's not good for you to be showing people that. And then they're going to be telling on what we're watching from space on planet Earth, right? Which is like the big thing that the Department of Defense is trying to like hide this. Some of you guys need to find out that because I exposed something about Department of Defense the other day, there's been several arrests, but the director is a Black man who he's completely sold out. He sat there and allowed this in our community because of the ways in which him and his people were using it to destabilize men that identified their families for starting different riots like Chicago, Detroit riots, or aligning with white people and not helping in the system, or using their position when they finally got their position to cause chaos, right? So it did not work. Space got exposed. Some of you guys have seen the invites that I've gotten, Department of Homeland Security, United Nations Cybersecurity. Yeah, they did, right? The School of Disruption. These are all these white institutions or these white organizations that they know about my work because they know that it's going to cause chaos, right? Right. Playing with virtual reality in the Black community. These are some of the systems that we have available to us, right? So we have Quaddle, which I'm going to show you guys right here on my desktop. So this has the ability to basically you can load floating points, specific floating points of specific planets. You can load them into your NIC card or your SDR card or your CPU or your PCI slots. Then that will actually edit your motherboard. It will also edit, right, any type of software that you upload, any type of MBR, master boot record, or GPT table or OS system will automatically be more enhanced. Now, because I have this floating point, I've uploaded it into my NIC card, my network card, that allows me to get on the internet, things like that. I can then run another script that will allow me to change my MAC address, that will allow me to change my IP address and then be virtually unseen on the internet. And then that's where you get Odinani coming in for creating tensor spaces. Then I can run a tensor space from Jupiter. So if they want to bypass, whatever code that I have on, or if they want to hack into my Ethernet port and then latch on to the substance that creates radio frequency, that then creates internet, they have to use a specific substance and they don't have it. They would have to go to a planet higher than the one that I'm playing with. They don't know of it. They can't access it because they're not an astrologer. How did you learn that? It's a few things that I've read and I've come into in my lifetime. I've been figured this out. Oh, floating points. Okay, I've seen this before. Because I've been talking about this for months on my channel. For those of you guys that watch my YouTube channel, I've been talking about this for months about your astrology and astronomy and the planets and what happens when things go retrograde and things moving left and right, all that type of good stuff. We've been talking about it for months here. People are just now latching onto the fact that it lands on that at the end of the day. It doesn't matter. They can make their own Fortran. We can make our own Fortran, which is like the first computer science language for programming spaceships and things like that, satellites, all of that type of good stuff. Fortran, we can make one because we have access to the floating point that can bring down a higher neural network in my calculator, in my computer. Right. So now can somebody go and take this and activate it? It's not possible. They won't get anything out of the floating point. It'll just be there. It will just be like this. No. Now, because I have the floating point here, right? I can go ahead and bring down different tensor spaces with the floating point because they go hand in hand. Now I can activate different electrical languages, right? Such as some of the things that we have here. Just an example. Let me show you. Let me upgrade you. I think that's what it's called. Let me upgrade you. Okay, yeah, let me upgrade you, right? So here we are bringing down an upgrade to using internet so that there's less packet loss and that there's actually a mechanism here so that when anybody gets onto my network through my MAC address, it automatically triggers the system that it's a hack. And this is how they broke all the VPNs. So a lot of you guys are finding out a VPN does not work unless you are using crystallography. This is where the biochemistry comes in. Again, I tell you, I love it, right? So I went to school for public health, but I first started off as a science major. So I have my associates in biology, right? And psychology, but I furthered my education and studies. And then I went on to finish like the first part of a master's in biomedical sciences that includes like heavy biochemistry, things such as that. So a lot of this I understand. A lot of this I comprehend. A lot of this is right up our alley. So you have to, for those of you guys that know about this, you have to bring down one of these now. And then also there's something with XYZ files getting completely dismantled, right? And we can run an XYZ file as a tensor space, but it's an actual chemical or it's an actual crystal. Okay. And crystals can, yeah, they can affect EMF frequencies. And here we go again into something that Daisy was already playing with on the internet and showing you guys, okay, so that's how you do it. You work for the ancestors. You work for them. You put in work because Harriet Tubman and all them, they saw what you guys were doing from space, playing with spell work, playing with people's kids, not honoring them, not being respectful, doing too much between flame, right? So here we've put in different chemical sequences and things such as that so that we can go ahead and have a better operating system and run tensor spaces. So basically what is happening here is they can create a web browser that's ran off of these files or a tensor space that she can create. The CPU memory, it doesn't matter because the floating point has expanded the memory now. They've officially expanded the radial probability distribution of the copper spiral valence. Okay, so this is where the chemistry book that I wrote on here is. You guys can go read some of this about the chemistry book. It's here. So you understand how these things like flow together. So then I have my valence structure. Oh, okay, but it's actually a spiral, which is an indigenous system. Hmm. So now here we go again with, okay, but why are they trying to hide this? Because it's the way in which chemistry, biotech, tech is going to move to the hands of black and brown people, and everyone's going to get cut off because of what they started. Okay, copper. I can go ahead and take this copper and get it to like a high quality copper that's like one step down from gold. Or why don't I use gold as an example? Because I actually have a gold chip that I made in my house. I have a gold coin that I actually minted and I made by playing with the spiral valence and playing with different coding systems. And it's going to come up in court and a lot of the things happening now, but I made it. It's right here. Okay, and you tested it with a 24 karat gold acid and you recorded that. Okay, people don't need to see that. Thank you. And it's so funny that 818 keeps on popping up and it's like in the spiral valence for gold. And I'm talking about melanin and it has gold in it. Right. So this is why you've also never seen proper slides of melanin as a biochemical or a cell. So let's say, for instance, I have 14 karat gold. That would be like this many spirals in the gold molecule. Now, let's say I want to get a 24 karat, I have to add more spirals, but then you need a specific system to do that. And this is where we get in with the rappers, and they sold us all fake gold, bro, so they could sell it to computer chips because a bunch of white people were making some supercomputer for child pornography and to steal from everyone's bank account. Right. And this is where you get this system here where we can go ahead and we can go ahead and make a packet. Right. So I'm gonna close this. Let me upgrade you. We can go ahead and do that. This is something that they've been trying to activate. You need a specific system to do that. We can go ahead and make like different like network interface files and to connect to different ports and to send different packages. And all we need to do is just send a binary file that looks like this and it shatters our CPU when it comes with this type of memory organization too. And a way that we can also bring in ASIC and tie together certain ASIC functions. What do you mean? You can activate control modes on somebody's device, on a secure device like that, using an indigenous system. Oh, yeah, that makes sense because you would go into the CPU and then the CPU would open up and allow for a logic bomb to come in. But then again, the CPU speaks to a different type of quantization. Who told you that I only work like this? And this is where you get the Seminole Wars, right? Seminole Wars over gold and cinnamon and what they were doing, destabilizing the whole entire government because Seminoles know how to mix a certain herb with gold or metals and they can get pure gold. Seminoles were black people, they're dark. This is Seminole right here. Show you right. So this is like one of the things like, oh, okay, and here we go with indigenous rights getting activated, but Daisy knows about this system too. And Daisy sat here, she sat here and wrote down at least 85 words from Seminole herbalism that no one like really knows about on the planet. How did you know that about those seeds and those plants? Right? But then here comes another thing too, another system that you guys can get into. I can look at a plant and I can tell functional groups are in that plant. Whoa, biochemistry is so over. I'm telling you, when all these Indian women come and they find out, what are you talking about? About those rebel groups, my family, because we're dark and you guys are still playing like that. Why are you playing with this black woman though? Right? Why are you playing in the community like that? That's the only conversation that people are going to be having though, right? And now another thing comes up with artists. We can't put out our work because they're hacking and tapping and playing games. I'm not going to get shortchanged like that. I want to upload myself to a system. I want to have something on my computer that moves my network interface card to a whole new system, to a whole new floating point. You can't even get into this unless I write conditional statement. Right? So here, let me show you guys what that would look like. Okay, I can write a conditional statement, which I'm going to start putting this out. A conditional statement, right? So let's say, for instance, you can only get access to my internet if you're a certain website, because I know that you're like looking into, trying to protect me, stuff like that. You cut conditional statements. right? Conditional statements. If A happens, then B kicks in. Okay, so then you can kick people out of your computer for life. And then for them to keep on doing that and keep on like trying to like do that, you just put a tensor space in, right? You can put in a tensor space, and the tensor space can run like a file that has like dozens and dozens and dozens of other tensor spaces, right? Or XYZ files that are specific chemical configurations to destroy your valence of your computer. So then I can have a file on my computer that eats at the valence of any computer that's trying to tap mine. And this is how the whole entire United States is going to have to replace their computer in 6 months, and they're going to have to explain why. Because we were harassing and stalking a black woman, and we tried to tell people she was crazy when she was right, and we tried to steal her work and pass it off. And because it's for Indigenous people only, everyone saw that and they scattered from us, and no one talks to us. Remember, Department of Homeland Security, 24 hours after doing a coding tutorial on chemistry, he contacted me, the director of chemical safety. Okay, great. So now you guys see who's watching this, right? Okay, great. Let's keep on going. Thank you, Uncle Benjamin Banneker. Thank you, Auntie Harriet Tubman. They're watching this in space. You guys are so dishonorable. You're going to get to talk to people that were here in the 1930s and 40s. What's your name is? You mighty fine. We can date, but I'm in space. What you got in your hair right there? Oh, no, no, no. We didn't used to do that. We just had braids and cold waves. Yeah, that's the new operating system, period. So many people are going to get set up. So I want to talk about who started these wars with Trujillo because I got on the computer and I'm talking to La Mama. Yeah, she died when she was 84. She was kidnapped for a farm. You guys took her to Guatemala across the water. It was your family that did it. How did you guys buy these farms? I'm now asking. I'm like 60 years old. Now I know what happened to my mother. I'm happy. Right, because those are some of the reasons why wars had started in Spanish America. That's what they did. They kidnapped all their mothers and daughters and grandmoms and put them on the farm to work for Dole and Goya. Imagine that. A better operating experience. And they thought that they were going to do something like this or play with me or play on my computer, which is another reason why haven't you been putting out the code snippets and stuff like that? Because first of all, it's not for you. And then also too, what they were trying to do to activate it. Oh, I print this out, attach Daisy's photo to it, then I get the blood of a black child, then I get the blood of a octopus or certain fish, and then I can code. Okay, then I feed this paper to the baby, and then I do this, and then I do that. That's what they were doing. Okay, I get this paper, then I feed it to this child, and I torture them, molest them, then I rape them, and then I get spiritual coding powers. Then it will work. That's why I haven't put anything on the computer. I'm so sorry. I just can't let that happen at all. They're too unstable. They're too delusional. They're hungry for this because they really destroy tech. Look at this. Yeah, all the companies clapped out. 144, look at this madness. Thank you. I've been talking about this for months. It's another thing that was happening too for the Black and tech community. Some of these women that were playing with me and harassing me, they had gotten into relationships with men, gotten babies out of them, etc. And they were playing with witchcraft that was tied to human sacrifice. So they got into this whole thing of trying to keep this all silent because of how they were trying to tell people that I was crazy and this and this and that. And then those men found out, divorced them, took those kids, got those kids. Even some of those kids had to get sterilized because of what the women did to get that child get pregnant. Yeah. Ooh, or they had to the child had to get euthanized. Yeah, that's they really like are going to war because they got caught playing. So this layoffs are FYI, you guys can go on here and it shows you all the companies that have like major mass layoffs in tech. That this is done for. It's done. That's done in tech. It's not what's new. Done. That's done in tech. It's not what's new. What's gonna happen? What's new? Another thing, chemical banks and chemical servers. So you can basically like generate a server that's supposed to be distributing financial rewards. And this chemical server is just like a file that you make of tensor space, and it's running the chemical sequence for gold. So you can back tokens by that. That's what we're talking about. You can have platinum, gold, silver, all of that. There's another thing that the Seminoles used to do too to make a platinum, and it's nickel with a certain type of herb. That's what got started. That's what they're trying to hide. That all came out, and they got caught playing games. So the Seminoles invited me in because of what I stopped in Atlanta, because that's like a very that was like a once a very heavy Seminole area. But you guys heard me talk about this with when I used to do readings about the karmic and the Mayan Popobal, Georgian societies, and how they would pick a karmic to be the queen and princess for a year, and at the end of that year, she gets sacrificed in front of everybody. She didn't know. Now I'm most powerful. That's like, yeah, dating men, all that. That's how they used to run certain religions, karmic societies. Yeah. and talking about all that and bringing that all up. And now look at all this on YouTube, right? So now you guys are seeing this, like now you guys see. Mhm. People playing games, flexing. This is karma too, because everyone had their time to show their hand in tech, and they wouldn't hire people, and they play games with people. I'm like, oh, okay, right, okay, oh yeah, I remember all that. Yeah, they harassed people, they gang stalked people, they did all that, and now they won't be able to get a job because of what they did, starting nonsense. Hmm. So, yeah, IBM, yeah, yeah, you guys, it's done. That's done in the computer. That's over. Now it's us getting together and like having classes, right? Sorry about that. And having classes about what system you guys can use. There's more. There's so many systems like out there, you guys. Now some of you guys are like, okay, well, so there's so many. Who's to say that this one won't work? But the thing is that these systems are all ran by the same people. There's just few systems for being on the computer, right? So even with some of the things that you guys want to do with like chemistry, things like that, the computer can only get into some small aspects of electrochemistry for paramagnetism. But for the most part, it's just doing something more like a database tracking, and then you activate that there's like basically you go into the spiral valence. You can make files like this. If you want to run a file like this with a tensor space and you want to project that tensor space into a specific type of like cymatic plate that then projects that frequency into the gold cube or gold bullion, you can also do that. And that's particle physics. And then you're changing up the leptons, quarks, and other particles, right, in that layer of the gold. So this is where we get particle physics, right? So this is what people have been like fighting over and causing calamity, people's kids going missing, and them starting a bunch of nonsense and chaos and just doing way too much, right? Like, oh, okay, I didn't know that that's what you guys do. So now it's coming out that space is actually ran, sorry, coding languages are ran in space by different aquatic beings and different like botanical beings that carry different functions, right? So think about when we used to have like you have HTTP and you have HTTPS. The only difference between those two protocols as like internet network protocols is that HTTPS has a specific type of certificate or an encryption mechanism attached to it to make it harder to tap, right? Now, who's running that function? In space, what it looks like is one flower or one fish that went to go play too much and create the internet, or serpent is getting a different flower or a different fish to add to their databases, right? To add to their substance or sequence, to latch onto their crystal to project that code. So now one of the things that I want to show you guys is with this is you guys have been seeing me bring up some of the different indigenous beings that we're working with here and that are supporting us in creating this system, right? Oh no. Hopefully I could find them. I don't want to have to like look through all these photos to find all of them. Right. Yeah, this jellyfish, she's involved. Oh my God. They each do something different. She would be more for like chemistry. Oh my God, the jellyfishes in chemistry, they're horrible for biotech. Wow, this is going to start a war in India. What are you talking about? How did the jellyfish tell you that? Well, I'm sure I have a jellyfish and she's going to be talking to. Those are the fights going on right now in the community because everyone has seen this. Right. This jellyfish, her hand is actually more for a specific type of coding language. That's like not necessarily a Python, but it will be more for graphics, like a GPU for like fixing your GPU. It will be like a different type of assembly language for your graphical processing unit, right? So you can get like better depths and different like colors and stuff like that, like what we're getting here in her photo. Right. So they all do like different things. And that's like, this is the type of thing that they're looking for to get on my computer so they can go harass these beings, inject them, molest them, get small children, sew their bodies to these beings. Those are the type of autopsy reports that were coming out. That's what was coming out in the news. Here's an article too, right here, if you don't believe it. Oh, here we go. Sorry about that. The aquatic beings, like so. This high priestess, let me bring her up again. She deserves her time to shine. She's more for chemistry, but she's really her hand in She like wants to make like facial stuff to help you with pock marks and like really, really crazy dermatology. Yeah, that's her hand. She has a lot of like, oh my God, I love her so much. She's helping with my beauty routine. You guys see my skin? And with the chemicals in the environment in the air, how do you think we're surviving as indigenous people? It's our aquatic beings doing this. So now, okay, now look at this. Yeah, this high priest is not playing. He's really for a graphical processing unit, right? Yeah. This high priest, yeah, he doesn't want people knowing what he does because he doesn't want to be harassed. It's like too many people coming and looking for him in the ocean. He just feels like it's like out of control and dishonest. So this high priest, yeah, he's not playing either. His hand, he wants no, he wants C plus plus badly. He's saying C plus plus, I'm on your ass. Him, he's the one that's really been tag teaming me. Wow. He's the one that's going to be building these kernel modules that we're going to be uploading to our computer to block people from getting in our computer. Also, that's what you do. Yeah, conditional statements. Now, how can they override the conditional statement? They can't. Why? Because they already put the floating point. It's something that they did with the memory, right? This one. And it will block any of that from coming forth because remember, my network interface card is now anchored to another planet that's then influencing, right, the modulation in the frequency of radio frequency coming into my computer to give me internet, right? So I can attach different code that looks like this to RF packets, and then I can be undetectable on the internet. This is like what they want to play with. We've done it several times. You guys are not seeing like I put this code on the computer, or I'll put it to like a network packet like this because if they're saying that we're hacking or doing anything, they have to acknowledge this. They have to say that it's magic, though. That's why she can do whatever she wants on the internet. I can do whatever I want. They can't do anything because it's effectively it's magic. It's magic. Right, right, right. But it works, right? So then here we go with another war, and people are not telling you, oh, okay, yeah, but this is what ended up happening after she put right those protocols up. So something ended up happening when I started coding this on my computer, and I think people need to see this and the different protocols that ended up popping up to expose people. So now people are finding out in tech, like, okay, so there's a bunch of different systems. You can get a preview on my page on the video that I post, but for the most part, this is like what's been going on. Something that's like really funny that's happening right now is that I'll do coding tutorials now, and it's because the universal like system is changing and it's enhancing because we did a lot of chemistry work and a lot of spiral work. And that's how a lot of these dangerous chemicals and harmful chemicals have been getting turned off on the planet, a lot of nuclear energy. It's because they turned it off from space, the indigenous people in space. You guys have to understand, like, they should have never played with certain people that can expose this and their hand in virtual reality. So something else that's been happening that's really funny. I'll do certain things, code certain things. The next day, we go out and look, we'll see all the protocols. Look at this one. Oh, sorry about that. Um, Here, just pull these up. Land, and it says land with the 37, right? Oh, give me one second. All right, thank you. Yeah, Harriet Tubman. That makes sense. Like, this is so dope for Black history that they just passed this on. It will make sense. They didn't really have computers and shit like that back then because they were enslaved. What the fuck? Yeah, yeah, that's what the Black community is saying. Like, right? It only makes sense that it will just evolve. And I swear, I feel so honored to be here because I've constantly been when I was growing up, people know me. My first job was working in the library with this really dope Jewish woman, Mrs. I'm actually not going to say her name because they are currently like doing that again, right? Auschwitz and nonsense. So she was a really dope older Jewish woman, and she hired me when I was in elementary school, and she taught me the Dewey Decimal System, a floating point system. Once again, right? Hey, right in the Jewish community, hey, we have something in common, right? Why Jews love Chinese food, right? So she I know a lot that goes on, right? So I learned the Dewey Decimal System, but I love to read, so I was always getting first dibs on different books, right? So Harry Potter, I read Harry Potter all through when I was a kid. That came out when I was like in third or second, third grade. I got one of the Harry Potter books every year. That's been done. Several epics similar to Harry Potter I've read. So a lot of this fan fiction and what these white men are talking about, Lord of the Rings and this special crystal, all that, I've been through all of that. Then I lived in Africa on top of that, right? So I can really tell you about witchcraft, right? Right? And different like magical happenings, right? Such as poverty, right? Because wow, that's super unnatural, right? So these are some of the tools that we can bring down the chemical bank and all these different things, and that's why like I'm trying to get everyone rallied up so that we can put in certain like mechanisms so that the work is protected moving forward, and I can come and code this thing down. Now certain people are like, oh, we can just get the code and copy it and paste it and do that. That's not how it works. It gets turned off. If even me, let's say for instance, like if I go back to eating chicken or beef and pork or even seafood and I'm aquatic, wow, you're talking about mad cow disease. Half of the black community is mentally ill because we eat seafood. That's where you get world star hip hop. That's cool. Mad cow disease. Right. So, right. You're not supposed to eat seafood. Right. So now what ends up happening here is we move forward. There's all these different systems. Let's say, for instance, I eat that nonsense. I can lose my ability to code. I can lose my system. My code gets turned off. Right. Let's say, for instance, like, okay, Daisy, I want to make a deal. I'll change my life. I'll do what I have to do, but I don't want to miss out. What do I need to do? You know what you need to do. You need to clean up. So when you guys were seeing me post all those videos, we were doing quick channeled messages, uplifting people, healing people, all that type of good stuff. Right. FBI agents watch my channel. Several celebrities watch my channel, and I help them in their healing. That's why I'm getting what I'm getting. And that's why everyone's shooting, beefing, fighting, murdering people, including police officers, because they saw it, because they were consistently watching my channel and they saw how it clearly evolved. So now look, in the computer, that's done. And then the funniest thing is, look how we can code tarot into the computer, right? Some of you guys haven't even seen that. That's one of the other systems. That's really for macros, and it can be for preprocessors, right? There's a few things that we can do with that, but mainly what it would do is it would ensure, right, that a certain type of flow or function exists. So let's say, for instance, like you can use tarot cards in coding in the computer. Yeah, you can use it in the binary format, but you have to use something to activate it, which again comes into another language called the Algonquin. Okay, and that's owned by the original indigenous federations that were targeted in the 1400s, 1300s for metals. So now some of you guys are like, okay, Daisy, how did you get this coding language? One of the first ones, though. I'm gonna kind of back up here. How did I get this ability to play with tarot? It's because of the way in which I expose like the faultiness in the spiritual community, right? So the Sumerians created that system and they run that whole false binary reality with all these people getting on DMT and meth and things like that and claiming their spiritual profits. So that's why they gave me this digital system. So here we go. Yeah. And then reading the Bible too, because, we're still Hebrew Israelites here. What are you talking about here? Right. And then Ermias, that's really it. Nipsey Hussle and advocating for him and speaking up for him and all that type of stuff, protecting him and his people and stuff like that, raising awareness. And then Aaliyah and raising awareness about that and getting women situated. Yeah, Aaliyah, if she was still around, we wouldn't be acting like this. So I'm going back to that, right? And bringing the 90s back. That's why I got all this. So hey, right? I can leave my phone at home. We can have parties where no one knows we ever were there. No photos, no nothing, because I can go into a database and just delete it. Actually, yeah, hey, that's a great thing. It's like, you remember how for a certain point in time we couldn't go outside and play as kids, and then all of a sudden we're back to the baby kids again. Hey, right? Great, right? We're going back to that. It's gonna be what a time to be alive. Drake getting exposed. What the hell? Yeah, you're supposed to be champagne poppy. You're goofy and delusional. You're playing with fentanyl. The fuck? Yeah, it's horrible. So the exposure, right? So now, let's say for instance, I want to for sure that a hacker can never ever get into my computer. He will try everything in his power and he'll just quit because he can't get in. I'll put the 8 of Cups. That means disillusionment, walking away. Let's say for instance, right, that I know for a fact that you're looking for me on the computer and you're trying to hack and you're tapping and you're playing at Ethiopia phone, right? Let's say some type of cell phone company in Ethiopia, right? I can put something in my computer, Five of Pentacles, that every single time you do that, you will have a major data breach. You have to pay out court cases, all of that type of stuff. Or one of the things that I can do is I can shatter your valence too. I can deactivate the paramagnetism and the outer electrons and then turn them into demagnetized. The Five of Pentacles. Right? So this is where people find out, like, oh, for the computer, it's something completely different. It's like all coding languages and like libraries. So let's say, for instance, I use the 10 of diamonds. Like it's like a certain library that I would like activate in no, not C++, in Golang, where anybody trying to, that's for not the 10 of pentacles, that's for the 10 of swords, right? Where anybody that tries to like bypass this network, they end up like shattering their network, and it causes packet loss on their server. So nothing can move into their server. They can't get any messages, nothing, right? So you can do that. So now one of the things that people are finding out is like we've been doing these coding tutorials, and then after I do the coding tutorials, we'll run into stuff like this: LAN, local area network, or we'll run into stuff like this: GIS, global spatial imaging, GIS, finding people. 'Cause there was something we were doing about 808 protocols, and then network interface cards, and people being able to drive their car and it not being on any server and still being able to operate like the Tesla software, all of that. Kex. And it's just all day. Like, and it just recently started because what we were doing. Right? So Ace, Ace of Swords. The truth will come out on the internet, and then look, Ace. And this is so funny because this is right in front of Aisha Curry's store. I didn't even realize that. So Aisha, like Ace of Swords, and you guys saw me code that into one of our last tutorials with those cards, right? So it just continues, like it's constantly going, constantly going, constantly going. It's constantly going. It does not stop. Um, it just goes all day, like it does not stop. A constant. The biggest one now is my birthday. I got like AMD because we were doing something with chip designs, microcontrollers and chips, and then I got AMD 813. I got here. Let me pull this up. Ridiculous. BTC we got after doing a coding tutorial on Bitcoin. NIC we got after doing a coding tutorial on network interface cards. It's just, it works on the computer, and then it's showing like this is like what happens, right? So we pushed a packet to Coinbase, their network, using this system. Then the next day we started seeing a bunch of stuff about BTC, XRP. I even got Ripple, the license plate. Yeah, Cindy Charles, Twitch head of music, she passed away because they were stealing everyone's music and playing games. And this is after I said that you guys need to be careful. CXP, copper connection system, kept on popping up. We've gotten that one so many times. There's so many in my phone. DNS, GPT, and MBR, GPT table, and then master boot record, one after the other. It's just been going. It's just constantly. It's just been going. It's just going. NCF. This is in machine learning for like algorithms, because we can put machine learning algorithms on our CPU so that as we're like projecting like radio frequencies, because the RF packet, right, and the server acts as like the incoming for like the floating points from space, the Ethernet, the internet substance from space. We then forward that into the network interface card. So effectively, my computer will always be connected to the internet everywhere I go. That's Starlink, right? So now, right, and I didn't have to get into everyone's phone and everyone's computer and shatter and partition everyone's network card or everyone's OS system or CPU to be able to run that, because that's what they're doing. They split up everyone's phone and memory and data, and they're doing that, and it's causing explosions in other countries where they have to pay minute by minute for memory, right? So AMD 813, because you guys know about the superconductor, because we close the spiral valence. You guys are not paying attention. It's working. UDP. UDP is a protocol for the internet for packet loss. YouTube runs off UDP 813. I can put something on my computer like, well, technically, I can just say no one can see my screen except for the Zoom network, and then except for YouTube, and then no one else can like get into my screen. And then yeah, but we can just like logic bomb and this and that. You would have to go and break the file that I attached, right? Because Then I can return and say, oh, if they're trying to put this and that out, I can return it with a file being parsed out into their CPU. I can return files or I can send back packets and files. So you're constantly in a loop trying to get your computer out of what you started getting on my computer. That's going to be real cybersecurity, throwing loops like that. So one of the things that's going on here now is that people are starting to see, okay, so that's what's going on, right? So then we're playing with assembly language, right? And then look what ends up happening with assembly language. We keep on pulling up the operands. That's move, and then that one is ESP. Those are operands and registers in assembly language, right? So we've proven without a shadow of a doubt that the language is responding like, okay, but this has other applications too, because she puts it in the computer and then it happens. How did that happen, right? There's another one that happened on my channel. It's right here. You guys can go on my timeline, and it's called encrypting your brain waves. Okay, good. Encrypting brain waves. So we did that one, right? Because of people getting uploaded to the neural monitoring technology. And then the next day I find oh, because I actually find the physical card, right? So let's say, for instance, we're doing the Ace of Spades. This is where the ace is coming from. Ace, we've seen this come up several times, and then if somebody even had this tattooed on their body, and I walked like right past them after talking about it. But the Ace of Swords means that you get a confirmation every time. So let's say, for instance, you're trying to send something across a network, like, oh, I want to send this to DOJ specific to somebody's email without having to like email server and have it go through like several different protocols. That's how you would do that. The Ace of Swords would be that, right? Okay, so now people have their ideas and stuff like that they want to put on the internet. This is going to change tech, period. Okay, so now I see what they've been doing. Okay, come on. Right? So I would be able to use this, but then there's something too that I can do. I can create this as a file too, and then have this parsed out, right? As a stream to the RF file or within the RF file. So there's different ways that I can encode this and use it in different capacities, right? Okay, okay, all right, right, okay. Oh my God. Mm-mm.